Thank you so much, Kevin, for that introduction. And it is fantastic to be back in Milton Keynes. I can't see all your faces because of the lights, but my career began here with English Partnerships 18 years ago this September. So it's really nice to come back. I parked in that car park. I hadn't seen that before. To come into this building, see the amazing detailing. I'm in awe of these curtains. So it's feeling great to me. You know, it does. I forget who said it, but it's sort of 20 years, right, to be an overnight success. And I was reflecting that in the last 20 years, a lot has changed. And I'm in a different role now, as Kevin has said. I've been in it for 4 weeks, so I'm finding my feet, and I'm the design lead for the West Midlands. And we're trying to really focus on inclusive growth and designing for inclusion and what that really means in a big geography. So there is the big geography. It is a vast region, and although I've grown up in this country and I grew up in the Midlands, I haven't got my head around the complexities of the West Midlands and the sort of multiple cultures in terms of political cultures, certainly the wonderfully diverse communities we've got three different cities. We've got lots of rural geography as well as the centres of urbanity like Coventry and Wolverhampton and Birmingham that people perhaps know a bit better. So it's a big geography. 7 authorities make up the combined authorities. We've got a couple of LEPs as well. So this is a big regional play. We're not quite back to regional planning, and I daren't utter those words, but it is something in the regional space, so between local and national, certainly. And for the last 10, 15 years, I've worked at the national level, and I'm on loan from Homes England into the West Midlands Combined Authority to drive design, really, and to make sure that we do things well as at pace. So, simple tools, but ones we're really focused on, because in some ways the third symbol there, the collaboration symbol, is the most important. How you work with partners to attract investment, to put the region on the map, undoubtedly, and to show both city and regional leadership. So I'm learning a lot, actually, and my wonderful chief exec, Deborah Cadman, gave me some stats last night. She said, you might want to remind folk of what's going on here. And we've done lots around the economic plan. We think of this as an economic geography. But stuff I'm getting my head around, it's the fastest growing region outside London, so 20% growth in the last 5 years. That's pretty good. House prices actually going up where London is going down, or other regions are stabilising. They're going up quite quickly, which is a bit nerve-wracking for some of the communities. 99 billion GVA, that's a good number. Really strong political leadership, that matters enormously. So that's there in the last symbol. Andy Street, the former chief exec of John Lewis, now our mayor, the West Midlands Combined Authority mayor, and in the process of coming up, we hope, for a re-election next year. But competitive process, and it's traditionally he's a Tory mayor, and it's traditionally a Labour geography. So that's challenging, and meaning we're having to fire on a lot of symbols at the same time. But that strong sort of political leadership combined with the council leaders, the strong role that the planning authorities play, and the culture of collaboration is really what we're trying to drive. There is funding already in the region. 17 billion has come through the devolution deal already, and we're hoping to see more of that. So again, the power of a combined authority to draw funding to a region. And actually something that excites me more than anything is that 30% of the population in that geography are under 25. So it's a really, really young, dynamic, creative future, I hope. And part of my role is to help that future come to the surface. We've got all sorts of fun things too. I think they're fun. A 5G testbed, so it's one of the national testbeds for 5G. And of course, some big projects that people will perhaps be familiar with. This is the city of Birmingham. Those of you who know it might recognise the new library towards the top of the slide there. This is Paradise Circus, and I'm there every week, 3-4 days a week. And I promise you, it is changing almost by the week. You have those partitions that cordon off the pavement, and there's a different pavement to the office every day. So it's Argent scheme there at Paradise Circus. You can see some of the historic assets, the conference centre, the new library, and a real blending of the historic with the contemporary. And Argent were the folk who did Brindley Place some years ago, so it's kind of interesting to see how they operate now in Paradise Circus, which was really a roundabout and a bit of trapped city for a long time. not just city stuff, rail stuff, really importantly. So this is something that the Mayor has campaigned heavily on to get HS2. He led his previous campaign on this to bring HS2 to Birmingham and beyond. And in fact, I've just come from the city stop. We've been speaking with the Local Government Association about the growth potential this morning. So I've just come from the International Station, which will be the central station on the HS2 line. And there's lots of learning actually coming out of infrastructure planning, the stuff I'm doing with the National Infrastructure Commission, which is the design group there of 10 members chaired by Sadie Morgan, and I joined that last month. And so we've got the principles that we've used around design in relation to the HS2 facilities, the new stations, the rail connectivity and so on, how it hooks into the commuter rail network. You're seeing to the left there all the commuter lines, the finer grain of cycle routes and walking paths, and the real sort of neural system that you need to physically connect up these neighbourhoods. So that's really interesting. There's a lot of stuff on the table already there around inclusion, connectivity around rail infrastructure. Some sort of big bang stuff as well. The Games in 2022, the Commonwealth Games, new stations at Curzon Street, the 5G pilot that I've mentioned, and then just last week, the Mayor announced the West Midlands Industrial Strategy, which is taking the national strategy into this geography. Lots is happening in relation to the Games. This is effectively an athletes' village that is coming forward on an old university site where we've taken down the sort of 70s buildings. The development lead here, developers are Lend-Lease, but quite a bit of creativity coming through, and that provision of kind of urban living parks as well. We actually are quite short of green space in Birmingham. I'm surprised how few, after cities like London or Manchester, how few really workable green spaces there are, and yet there's loads of opportunities to bring those spaces in. These are some CGI, sorry about the slightly fuzzy one on the left, and I think there's more to go actually. As Kevin said, I trained as a landscape architect, and I saw these images and I thought, a bit sterile, I think we can do better than that. So, you know, these are early CGIs, and I think we can do better than this. But we will work on it, and it's about delivering the kind of mix of uses at the same time as the sort of creative opportunities and the great public realm. We're really embracing innovators. I mean, everyone would say this, but we're doing a lot around MMC. Just last week, I think it was, I helped put together a deal, which has been in the press a lot, between Sekisui House, Urban Splash and Homes England. So an investment joint venture there, which will bring the innovation from Japan. Sekisui House are the biggest housing provider in Japan. They're now in partnership with the government, Homes England, and with Urban Splash, one of our kind of enterprising firms that we probably all know, who've got quite a good product, House, which is their modular product. And they're the first sort of coming together, if you like, of those partners is on a site called Port Loop, which is just north of Birmingham. And so I'll show you some slides on that in a minute. And we're doing finer grain stuff with Impact Hub in Birmingham. We're doing, we want to kind of work at different scales. So there's the big, you know, the games, the City of Culture, the sort of grand scale, but there's the medium scale, which might be the Urban Splash Port Loop scheme. And then there's the smaller scale stuff, doing demos, partnering with the universities. We've got lots of relationships with the different universities and learning networks across the West Midlands. This is the Impact Hub work coming out of Digbeth, working with WikiHouse and Demo Dev. So we're embracing innovators. You know, doors are open. We're hoping 5G will help us connect up with where the talent is. It could well be in someone's spare bedroom or some kids sort of shed or something. And we know just from, you know, a place like California or Seattle, it's not necessarily in the centre of the cities. So we need to find that and bring it to the surface. And I'm really passionate about green space. And so it's great to see some parks that were put in a few years ago. This is the one in front of Millennium Point that Patel Taylor did. I was walking through it the other day, and it's, yeah, the blossom is out now. There's that great sort of bright green that you get at this time of year. People are using it. It relates to some university buildings. It's where, when HS2 lands, will be the space that you kind of first see. So the importance of green infrastructure, the health and well-being agenda, and so on. So these are all the things we're thinking about. And there are challenges too. It's not rosy by any means. You know, the decline of high streets, there's a lot in the press about that at the moment. We've got a lot of high streets across our geography that are failing, and we've got to be thinking differently about those. We've got chains that are closing. We've got some success stories, you know, shopping above a new rail station in Birmingham itself at New Street. But then we've got Dudley, Town Centre, bits of Coventry are struggling, you know, quite good population, but not the kind of retail offer that people want. So we're having to think differently, and we were just having some conversations last week with people from Regis, actually, who've got a new model. Rather than doing service to offices, they're now looking at local delivery of what sounded to me a bit like a cafe, really. It sounded like an internet cafe, from what I could figure out. But yet, by bringing the tech, the 5G connectivity, good coffee and food, stuff that's grown organically, young people, you don't have to be young, but people of all ages together, and encouraging them, putting sort of business support services around them as well. Growing. We know the talent is in our communities, but we're struggling at the moment to surface it. So a big part of my role is to sort of find it and bring it into the light. Here's the Port Loop scheme that I mentioned, and it's a good case study, if you like, of kind of public-private sector and overseas investment over time. So the site is a really funky site because it is literally a loop between the canal. The straight bit is one bit of canal, and then the loop is another bit of canal. So amazing, sort of really rich industrial heritage, a cleared site now, a few heritage assets, and then the modular buildings that Splash have pioneered in the northwest and the northeast are being built out now, and they're opening up. They've got some public viewing days in June, I think. And this is where Sekisui will start to sort of innovate and change the prototype that has been house. So let's actually go back to that image, because I wanted to also, so that's hopefully painted a bit of a picture of the West Midlands, but I also wanted to say a bit around where I want to have some influence and to shape things, and actually to invite all of you to play in that space as well if you want to. And I have to be honest, I was struggling when I started to sort of look at the region, because there's so much, and you've got very rural areas, you've got, you know, the second city, Birmingham, but it does punch below its weight still. You know, a lot of people think of Manchester as the second city. Big numbers of people, you know, pretty close to London, middle of the country. We've got to be able to do something with that. Coventry has got a really great programme of regeneration over many years. And so there was lots of stuff happening. So I tried to distill it down into three things, and they're the three things that I'll focus on for the next year. And because of my landscape background, we're calling it DIG, because I spend quite a lot of time digging. So D is for design, I is for investment, and G is for grow. So DIG is the sort of, and there aren't slides on this, this is really the concepts that I'm testing, and then we'll start working through this year. And also DIG is the beginning of digital, so we're doing an awful lot of this in a sort of digital space as well as a physical space, if you like. The Mayor has committed to a design charter, so that's some of the work that I will lead with all the existing partners. Some of you will know Pat Willoughby is there. She and I sat down yesterday with some students to think about how do you do a design charter for a region? What would success be, and how can we make other people kind of own and drive that success? So we're still scratching our heads on that one, but we're going to do lots of consultation and bring that to light sort of through the summer into the early autumn. So design charter, I want to do something quite simple. I think I'm going to call it a field guide, because for me this is a geography. I start with the physical geography, the land and the water, the woodlands, the highlands, the lowlands, and so on. So I actually start to almost like a geographer's guide to look at what's there now. I think we're missing stuff. I think there's different ecologies in different places, business ecologies as well as organic ecologies, and how can we bring the sort of character of the place to the surface. So there's something that's going to be quite landscape and geographic, I hope. In the design space, we're talking to REBA and RTPI and ICE and RSCS and all the sort of professional bodies about a housing expo, pioneered here through the energy world and things like that. But could we, in this region, particularly when we've got showcase events like the Commonwealth Games in 22 and the City of Culture in 21, could we start to do some housing expo stuff around that? And it could be as simple as having a project in each of the 7 combined authorities. And one might be a little pocket park, and another might be some cool modular stuff, and another might be one of those Regis kind of local innovation hubs in a high street that's struggling. So those are the things we really want to talk to interested parties about. We want to grow, you know, so there's the design. Design is a driving narrative to encourage investment into the area through innovative programs like expos. World fairs are even being talked about again. That's exciting. And then the G is to grow. The reason for doing this is to grow the opportunities primarily or wholly for the local population, but also to attract inward investment. I know that digital is a big part of this. I'm not a whiz kid on digital stuff, but we've had the privilege of working with Dominic Campbell from FutureGov over the last couple of years. He's had his business within Homes England, and I was just with him this morning in the West Midlands. And he absolutely thinks in that space. and we know just through Twitter or through social media, Instagram, whatever people tend to use, that's how you find communities of interest. I've sort of met people that I will probably never meet in real life, but we're exchanging information the whole time. We're enthused by people like Public Practice and what they've done in London, and we're trying to now bring them into the region. We've got a partnership already with the Design Council. You know, we love working with the AOU and all your partners. So it is absolutely about inclusion and collaboration, and that is the sort of strong message I'd like you to take away, and also to help us get into the international space would be amazing. I'll end with an anecdote. In between jobs, I went to California for 2 weeks because it was cold and rainy here. It was February, and I just wanted a bit of a pause really between the two roles. And years ago, I was a student in the States, and I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years in the 90s. It was a long time ago. Anyway, I went back, stayed with friends from that time, who are now billionaires, of course, because they bought a small flat and it's now worth a gazillion. So I definitely made a mistake coming home, but that's by the by. And they all sit on the beach doing a couple of emails, and that's a day's work, and then they surf. So, hey-ho. Who's the Muppet? But they were saying, what are you doing next? You know, why are you on holiday? And I said, well, I'm switching roles. I'm going to go and support the mayor and the Combined Authority in Birmingham. And they said, oh, Birmingham, Alabama? And I was like, oh, actually, there's another Birmingham. There is a Birmingham in England. Oh, is that the real Birmingham? Yeah, that's the real Birmingham. Well, that's one of them. And so where's that? What does that do? And it just made me think, blimey, you know, people have heard of London, and they've probably heard of Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, maybe Hull is more on the map now. But I was surprised, pretty enlightened folk, architects, engineers, planners in California hadn't heard of Birmingham. And then I said, have you heard of the Commonwealth Games? Yeah, we've heard of that. Oh, if you're doing that, we'll come. So there's certainly a lot to do, I feel, certainly in this year and the years leading up into the big events around kind of using design, using investment, and growing the visibility of the place through the built environment and through the organic networks that are already there, and through the connectivity that both physical and digital infrastructure will hopefully give us. So that's where we are. That's month one. Thank you, Kevin.